Hey everybody, it's Guy here. It's Saturday, October 15th, I think is the date. I'm just filing a quick report about how to serve a notice of liability. Now, in my opinion, this is one of the most powerful tools that the Freedom family in Canada has in order to be effective. The reality is, from my perception, people are starting to wake up and the public is starting to see through many of the narratives in which they believed in the past 2.5 years. And a lot of information is leaking out of the alternative media into mainstream platforms. And the door is starting to open, and we need to kick it wide open, and the time is now. It's not next year, it's not next month, it's right now. We have to, anybody who has the courage to do this needs to print off a notice of liability, which I'm going to tell you how to do that in a moment. And you need to identify the kinds of people who should receive the notice of liability, and you need to serve it to them. The world has changed in the past 2.5 years. A lot of us are a lot more savvy than we used to be. Some of us thought that just by leading marches in the downtown of our cities or writing to politicians, we could get the job done. And all of that helped, but it was not enough. I remember getting into many unpleasant arguments with people in coffee shops and elsewhere, and the police would be called, and we'd get into things about having mask exemptions and all this kind of stuff. Well, now is the time, instead of just getting into arguments or just sharing an opinion, serving a notice of liability is the most powerful thing you can do, in my opinion, because you're saying to someone who is participating in what is emerging as a major international crime that as of the day that you serve them the notice, they can no longer ever say that they didn't know. Fact is, the research and the information over the past 1.5 years has been going entirely our way. And the data, which I cannot describe here because otherwise this video will be at risk of being taken down, you all know that data. It is going our way. And as I say, I've never wanted to be wrong about something more than this. So I'm very sad to say that it's gone that way, because I would have loved to have been wrong. But we know that we're right now, and we have the data to show it. So here's what you do. I'm going to cover up the name here because it's not pertinent. This is a copy of a notice of liability that I downloaded from a website operated by a group called Stand United. It's Stand United Canada, but it's just so you know, the group started in British Columbia. So initially it was called Stand United BC. And I guess this whole program was successful, so they expanded it to be nationwide. So here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to the website, which is www.standunitedbc.ca, www.standunitedbc.ca. And if you live in BC, you can download the notice of consent from there. If you live in another province like I do, you go a little further down on the page and you download the one that's for Stand United Canada. And what they've done is they've rewritten it a bit so it's not just pertinent to British Columbia. Okay? Hope that's clear. There are 3 sections. The first is a single page that you download, and that's not something you give out. That's for your benefit. It gives you a bit of a script to work from of the main things you want to convey to the person you're serving. So you print one of those off for yourself, read it, and then, put it away, or at least don't put it in the envelope that you're going to hand someone. Then you're going to print off the notice of liability itself, which is a whole bunch of pages, and it makes the it basically talks about the complicity of and the harm and the willful harm and the laws that are broken. It's very well argued. And then the third thing, you've got the the instruction page for yourself, you've got the notice of liability, and then they have a third document, which is basically supporting evidence for the claims that are being made in the notice of liability. It even includes QR codes that the recipient can scan with their camera phone and be taken to websites and links and further support documents to prove that what you are claiming is true. And then what you do, and this is really important, there are several places, not just on the cover page, but there's a few spots where you write the recipient's name, their job title, and the date that you served them this. And then what you do is you take that information and you enter it in a separate place on the Stand United website into the database, because they've created a database of all the people who have been served on certain dates, so that when the time comes for prosecutions, and there will be a time of prosecutions, these people can never say that they didn't know. This is very much in the spirit of the Nuremberg Code and the experiences from World War II. And that's why the Nuremberg Code was created, so that nobody would ever be forced to submit to a procedure against their will. So I have served these with a couple of friends at a local clinic to one of the head nurses. I made a video about that you can also find on my YouTube channel about how that went. I've also served the local police detachment where I live. And in that case, it was in the spirit of there's something going on that requires police intervention, and I am asking the police to do their job, basically. And I'm giving them, via this, I'm giving them the evidence they need that they might not have seen in order to realize that they need to enforce the law. And specifically in that case, it had to do with the clinic that's local, where I have evidence and I have witnesses that people are not being given informed consent. And it's not how the law even the police officer, one of the police officers I spoke to, didn't seem to understand, because he thought, oh, well, it's people's job to go before they get this procedure and educate themselves about the risks. No, it's not actually. It's the duty of the person administering the procedure or in a position of authority in those matters to fully explain to people what the benefits and the risks are of the procedure. And if that's not done, then somebody's rights are being violated. Now, and so anyway, when I was at the local detachment, they gave me a business card, and I'd made an appointment, and a police officer took the information and scanned it and passed it on to the staff sergeant, whose name I have on here. I won't show it, but it's on the other side of the card, because I'm not out to embarrass anyone in this video. And I have a case number now, so we have a file started with the local police department, in this case the Ontario Provincial Police, who do the policing for my area, which is the Parry Sound area in Ontario. And so I have his name and I have his direct number, so I'll give him a number of days, and then I'll follow up and I'll say, what can I expect you to do in light of this information that I've given you? Because there's a lot of marketing going on to children right now. And I went to this clinic. The clinic locally is not open every day, but when it is, it's by appointment only, and it's in a local shopping center. So I went to that shopping center because I didn't want to make a claim to the police without having seen it with my own eyes. And I just sat on the bench at about 4 p.m, and I just sat there, and I noted that in the time I was there, just over about 10 minutes, a number of families came in to have a procedure, and they had appointments, and a total of 6 children were brought in for this procedure. So this is This is the scale that we're dealing with here. And you got to remember, like when I watch this happening, these people have absolutely no idea of the other information that we know. And when you talk to these people, when you serve them, you have to be prepared for the fact that they've been told that, you know, we're conspiracy theorists, we're right-wing fanatics, we're racists, we're misogynists, God knows what. They've been smeared, like we've been smeared. The trucker convoy was smeared. So you got to realize they might look at you like you have three heads. So it's very important to remain calm and to not do this in a hostile way. The approach that I've taken with medical people and now with the police is to say, look, all I'm doing is asking you as a citizen to follow the law and to enforce the law, specifically around informed consent, so that people's rights are respected and the law is followed. And that's a strong position to be on. And you can also explain to the person that now that you have this knowledge, you can never say you didn't know, but in a way this empowers you, because as long as you give informed consent, you'll be protected when the prosecutions happen. Now, I'll just wrap up by saying that this same process was followed recently in the UK. I noticed that in the city of Windsor, a group served a notice of liability at a clinic and it was shut down. And you can go online and you can see the video of that. And if I'm posting this on social media, I'll try and post a link to that video in the comment section. It was very effective. And so when I delivered the package to my local police, I put it all in an envelope with my contact info. And I'm very upfront and polite about my purpose and that I'm available at any time to talk about these matters. And while I was waiting in the car for my appointment, I was watching that video from the UK, and I happened to write down a number of the charges or violations that group in England said that the police needed to enforce. And of course, their laws are a little bit different from Canada, but I had the police scan this in as well. They scanned the document to pass on to the staff sergeant. And I was just wanted to stimulate their ideas a bit about what these violations might be. The main one is the failure to give informed consent. And there are three subcategories of that I'm not going to mention here, or the video might be taken down. But there's other things like gross negligence, manslaughter, fraud, malfeasance in public office, misconduct in public office, conspiracy to administer something substance with intent to cause serious blah, blah, blah. Can't use those words. And I mentioned violations of the Bill of Rights, the Charter, the Nuremberg Code, and the Constitution. So you will find your own way of doing this, but I just ask you, please do it. A lot of us have, unfortunately, the resistance movement, the freedom movement is very fractured at the moment. There's a lot of people arguing with each other. There's different ideas about where we should go from here. I just think, and another problem is a lot of us have got in the habit of getting a dopamine hit from just sharing links on social media. And we think, oh, well, I shared this link, I've done my job for the day. And that's all good, but it's not good if it takes the place of action. So in addition to protests or other things you can do and writing letters and making phone calls and sharing information and building intentional communities and off-grid homes and stuff like that, about which I'll be doing more videos. This business of the serving a notice of liability is probably, in my opinion, the most powerful thing you can do, because it will really get the person's attention. You're not just arguing with them or yelling at them or anything like that. You're being polite, you're giving them critical information, and you're helping them protect themselves from future liability, especially around informed consent. So who should you give this to? You can think of pharmacies, doctors, clinics, local police, local schools, local police, uh, mayors, reeves, people in town councilors, people in positions of authority. My local school isn't engaging any procedures, but the high school that my stepson goes to, I had a meeting with the principal. I gave him one of these packages. In that case, I didn't deliver it as a notice of consent or a notice of liability. I just said, look, this is an information package I want you to have, so that if the government brings in rules and procedures that violate people's constitutional rights, you have this background. So if I have to come in here and talk with you, it won't be the first time you've met me. So you can also do it that way, in a softer way, with people who are not directly involved with the criminal actions. You can do it in a softer way just to educate, and it gives you something tangible to give them, so it's not just a conversation they're going to forget about. But where it's most powerful is with people who are on the coal face of this activity. It could really get them to stop and think. And even if it doesn't, you've done everything you can. And that person's name and the date that you gave it to them is something you enter in the database. So you go to the Stand United website. They have a separate section where you enter the name, job title of the person you served, and the date. And then that person's name and the date you served them is in a database. So when the prosecutions come, if they were offside, they cannot argue that they didn't know. And that's a powerful thing. So it's peaceful, it's legal, it can be done without people yelling and screaming. And then once you've done that, then you can take things to the next level, and you can circle back a week or two later, and you can say, well, what are you doing? What is the status? And you can then have the next conversation. And I guess if nothing happens and these crimes continue, then maybe you can go and start some sort of a protest action to call attention to the fact that nobody's acting on the information you gave them. But that's something I'll follow up with later. I'll let you all know how these things go with me. And that's it. Sorry, the video is a bit longer than I wanted it to be, but that's important information. Please share this video with everybody who you think might be interested in doing this, and let's take action. Thank you for your kind attention, everybody. Namaste.